Hey, what's up, everybody? Billy Ward here with the Billy Ward Podcast, episode number 3. I'm incredibly excited about our guest today, Matthew Dwyer. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. Here at the show, we are going to share a little bit of our own stories in an effort to provide you with a framework by which to live. Matty, if we could just kick off our episode with, what are you grateful for at this moment? Could be anything from your cup of tea to something bigger.
Black coffee. It's been a big part of my morning ritual. And I've been singing a lot. So I'm really grateful to have a place in my house. It's not a big place, I live in a little house, where I can sing and chant with my harmonium. And sometimes without it, I'm getting more comfortable without it. But just to be able to do that and not have like neighbors pounding the door. You know, we have a new neighbor that just moved upstairs. And when she came in, I was like, I wonder if she's going to be okay with me like singing in the morning. And she has, so that's cool.
Awesome. I got to ask you too, what does your hat say? Is that Sanskrit?
Yeah, it means Ram. So
Right.
Ram is one of the names in the Indian wisdom tradition, the name of God. And they say that the name is more powerful than Ram himself because it's naming the unnameable.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a Sanskrit tattoo on my chest, Namaste. So
right
I love the writing and the philosophy behind all that wisdom. Maybe we start off, Maddie, just sharing with our audience some of what you do and some of what's most important to you in this life.
So right now, I'm teaching yoga full time. So that includes like both physical asana, it includes meditation classes, and really my path of yoga is bhakti yoga. It's the yoga of devotion, the yoga of love. And there's a lot of ways that you can practice that. And there's a lot of ways you can teach it, which I think is important because sometimes people they'll teach something in a way that they say like, this is the way you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's doing yoga a disservice. Like there's many ways that we can teach bhakti and practice bhakti yoga. So I would say that I'm a bhakti yoga teacher, teaching yoga asana, meditation, and also kirtan, namasan kirtan, which means chanting the names of the divine. So chanting the names of God. And besides that, I also do some work in hospice. So I sit with people who are dying, and I try to do a lot of service. In Sanskrit, they call it seva. So we have a big outreach program called Love Seva. It's mostly on the West Coast, and we've done some on the East Coast too. But it's just serving people. So we have different modalities to usually serve the people who are not fortunate enough to be able to go into a yoga class or come to a kirtan or sit with someone for private meditation stuff.
I'm really excited you brought up bhakti, and I want to talk a little bit about the hospice as well. When we crossed paths years ago in a yoga studio, I think we were practicing together for the first time, and I think I felt an energy so much so that I wanted to introduce myself. I was interested in some of the tattoos, and but what really interested me most was this idea that here was a guy my age or close in age that was so willing and open to talk about love. A topic that a lot of men don't ever really talk about. Sometimes men go to live desperate lives, and we go to the grave without ever kind of opening up. And here was a guy on a yoga mat within 2 feet from me that I felt like this guy was in a radical pursuit of not only loving himself, but also loving others. Can we talk a little bit about that path and what led you there?
Yeah, and you kind of just opened up a lot, reminded me a lot too. And I also want to say like that connection and that energy and that transmission was felt equally. I think it's like with anything is we're attracted to certain things that are like, without sounding super like airy-fairy, like the same kind of wavelength or same planet or same vibration. But you just reminded me, a lot of the work that I did initially getting into the practice of yoga was men's work. So I met one of my main teachers, David Harshita Wagner, a bunch of years ago, and he was writing his book, and so we were a men's book on spirituality and reclaiming masculinity. And a lot of the initial teachings in that period of my life were around men's work. So being able to sit in a group of men from all walks of life. I mean, there was military men there, there was yoga guys there were like motorcycle people there were, hippies there. And it was this kind of ragtag group of men that we would meet up in New York, and we went to Kripalu a couple times, and there's another spot up there, and I think it's called Menla. So we would have these weekends where it was just men talking about things like purpose, things like love. And in the beginning, it was really part of my mission is to start having these conversations with men, because like you said, we kind of really need that. And if we don't have it, we sort of will go home, and the connection we have with men might be, at the bar, or like watching sports, and it's all good. Like if that's how someone connects, that's fine. But I think that men really want to go deeper.
Yeah. And
up until a certain point, and evolutionary, like we didn't have that outlet so much. Like if we look at all of the work that women have done over the past 30, 40 years, like all this huge movement, which is amazing. Men have they've like lost their purpose in a lot. I'm speaking really generally,
Yeah.
And then so you go to these yoga studios and you start seeing some men there, and maybe you connect there, but not every guy wants to go to a yoga studio.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not their thing. And like we have to meet people where it is that they are. We have to meet people, where they are on their path.
I couldn't agree more. I've had some incredibly powerful conversations in a parking lot at Krauser's, right? Just walking out with a quart of milk. You mentioned in there this idea with David, one of your friends, of reclaiming masculinity.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
That's such a big question.
I get it.
Well, it's especially now. It's like masculinity can sometimes be looked at as a toxic word, and then we can put all this new age jargon on it, and then we really can look at toxic masculinity. We're like violent, sort of overly macho, really kind of closed. If we get into like the archetypes, it's a lot of time like the warrior archetype, who is like doesn't have any of the lover, who doesn't have any of like the magician or the sage or whatever you want to call that archetype. It's like straight warrior. And I think for most modern day men, they don't really get to actually use that warrior in a way. A lot of them, like they're on the couch. And they become sort of calloused and hard. So like, what does it mean to be like a masculine man in 2020? I mean, it's taking all of that toxic kind of crap and being able to look at ourselves and then like get our communities back. Like what does it mean to support your loved ones? Like to support your partner, whether it's a female or a male, to take care of your kids so they have positive role models, to take care of your community. Like I want to make my community better. And not just the community of your yoga community or your motorcycle community or your gardening community, whatever it is, but like a community as a whole. We start looking at a global community, and right now it's so easy to see a global community in some ways. But instead of just like looking at it as this is my little plot of land, this is my little tribe, and I need to protect them, because that's the other side of it. Is like I can even just feel that like kind of thing going over me. It's like I have to protect this little thing here. But no, we need to like really protect and love everyone.
So what you're saying, or what I hear you saying, is like maybe long ago, the warrior in us was we had to strap on our equipment or our tools and go out and hunt for the day and come home and bring food and spend a lot of day isolated and alone, walking through the forest or the woods looking for food. And maybe, according to what I hear you saying, maybe today, this day and age, part of that challenge from a warrior perspective is to have the guts, right? To kind of take a look at who you are and really consider that relationship with yourself, and then also begin to look outside of yourself and how can I be of service as a man in this day and age?
Yeah. And what you were doing earlier, you were doing this thing, and it reminded me of there's a Hindu god. His name is Hanuman. He actually serves Ram. And there's a part in the story where he rips his chest open to show that the names of Ram and Sita is the feminine counterpart, like carved into the bones on his body. And I think of Hanuman so much as like the perfect embodiment of bhakti yoga, but also the perfect embodiment of a warrior. And yeah, so like it used to be strap on, go out there and protect, or go out there and hunt. So I think that it's an interesting thing to think, like, a lot of men, when we do connect, we're not usually like this. We're usually kind of like shoulder to shoulder.
Driving in a car.
Sitting
going
down.
For a walk.
Yeah. Watching like a sports team or something, or like even like at a concert. And we're a product of our environments. So we don't have that. It's not an environment for most of us anyway. There are obviously still is, but for most of us there's not. So how do we connect with that warrior spirit and also connect with the spirit of the lover? Like, just because we are a warrior doesn't mean at the end of the day we don't take off the pack. We don't take off the armor. We don't keep it on, because otherwise it'll get sort of like, really gonna beat this symbol to death, but it'll get like super hard and calloused and get stuck on. Like a warrior to me these days is someone who goes out and gets shit done. Like, okay, what are we doing now? This is the beginning of May when we're doing this interview. And let's garden. Let's go out there and like get it done. So the king is kind of like the ruler. He has this vision, the vision of our life, and the warrior is going to go out and till the soil and plant everything. And the lover can go out there and look at how beautiful these plants are and talk to them and have that sort of relationship. And the magician or the sage or the mage, whatever you want to call it, it'll go out there and we can have some kind of spiritual connection to it. Appreciate the life that's growing from the ground, and being able to like work with the alchemy of the earth.
Is part of your approach with the bhakti yoga to seek God in all things, including yourself? Yeah.
So bhakti is an interesting path because sometimes it can be looked at as dualistic. It's a dualistic being like God is here and Matthew's here. And the practice that I come from and the lineage that I come from is non-dualistic. So it's like God is here, but God is also here, and God is here, and God is behind the camera lens. And the practices of bhakti can look very dualistic because you're singing the names of God. God, 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 I love you, I love you, I love you. Essentially, but so many of the translations mean. But you call out to that lover, the beloved, to then find that beloved is here. And it's just this dance, and it's like you call to the one to then dance with the one and then merge with the one. And then again, there's separation. And it's just this beautiful, rolling display of emotions and longing You know, there's like longing is a huge part of the bhakti practice. Like, where are you? You know, prayer, you know, even worship. And we eventually, that worship and that dualistic practice, you know, has tastes of oneness.
It's interesting. You talk about the non-dual mind, right? And in seeking God, but also recognizing that God is here and there and behind the camera. Isn't that philosophy just incredibly applicable to just about everything? You know, just seeing this oneness and this connection that we share, not only with ourselves but each other and all of nature.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's so hard. You know, the practice that one of my teachers, Neem Karoli Baba, says to love everyone. You know, Ram Dass his guru was Neem Karoli Baba. And he taught, love everyone, serve everyone, always remember God. That's the only thing he taught mostly for the Westerners. And this practice of loving everyone is it's really interesting, especially now, because we can say it really easily, love everyone. No, I love you, I love you. But then there's all these people that really trigger us.
Sure.
You know, you look on any social media, any television network, and it's just like, oh shit. Well, the practice isn't to me to love the people that are easy for me to love. The practice is for me to love everyone, not from here, right? It's from here, right? That like aspect of Hanuman. We're not loving from the mind, even though the mind can help us. The mind's not a demon. So often we demonize the mind in yoga. So we don't even really get to do this practice of heart work. You know, we just stick to the body, the physical practice for many, many people. And really it's, you know, when I look at someone who upsets me that I don't agree with, I have to say, well, what is that telling me about me? Or anybody, really?
That's a powerful question.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the practice is for me to love everyone equally. Right? So you know, that's hard. You know, if you go into a prison, you'll be around people who are, you know, have done really awful crimes. And it's not that people shouldn't, you know, be let go because they've done crappy things and, yeah, love everyone and just run rampant. No, but it's still to see them as a soul and to see them as divine.
I hear you saying, so I want to talk about this with our audience, right? Because we're all triggered, right? And we all run into those people that kind of get under our skin. And I think in those moments, sometimes we justify, hey, I can react to that because they're doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And you're saying, one of the first things I hear you saying is like, when somebody pisses you off or triggers you, instead of reacting to them, you immediately ask yourself, what is it about me and the way that I'm seeing that is allowing myself to be triggered by this person?
Yeah, and that's if you can in the moment.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's just reaction, right? I mean, the other day I was out, I was at the garden store, and as I was leaving, it'll be a short story. Some guy was walking his dog and he yelled something at me. And at first I just wanted to know what he was saying. Like, maybe am I going down the wrong street? Am I going a one-way street? And then my dogs were barking, his dogs were barking. I couldn't hear him. And he just had this kind of thing about him where he looked like he was pissed off at me. Right, so I was gonna just leave it at that. And I just said, all right, have a nice day. I was gonna ride. And he just looked at me and goes, I don't wanna have a nice day. And to love everyone, like, whoa, and that, you know, but we live in a dualistic thing. So especially being from like, you know, no offense, but from New Jersey, and like all of a sudden, like all I want to do is react, you know, and I did, and I was just like, you know, so I didn't have this, you know, in the back of my head, I was going, love everyone, but also I was pissed, you know, so long story short is he eventually like went into his house and I was still out in the car. I was angry, you know, and I drive a little Prius. If anyone has a Prius, it has like they have the wimpiest horns, right? And my last thing was, you know, and the crappy little horn, you know, and I drove away. And I was, you know, my blood was boiling. And yeah, I did a couple practices as I was driving to try to calm myself down. But it's a practice, right? So like in that moment of this guy and I, like, which could have been a pretty easy, simple, okay, yeah, sorry, thanks a lot, and drove away. I was tested, and I didn't in that moment say, what is this telling me about myself? But there is a reflection or a quality, I can have time to be reflective about it and say, well, what the heck was that all about?
Yeah.
I still have work to do. Back
Sure,
to the drawing board.
Sure.
Back to the drawing board.
And does that ever really end, going back to the drawing board? It's kind of like a lifelong commitment.
We are beautiful beings of imperfect perfection, and I don't want to say that it lets us off the hook to just like constantly screw up, and I'll be like harsh on myself, or like constantly have these bumps in the road, because that could be the other thing that gets tricky is, well, everything is God and everything is perfect, so whatever. But we can't just say whatever, because then we become really complacent, and our practice gets really floppy. It's just like, because then like whatever turns into just, Ram Dass says, like, everything is a teaching, and even our suffering is a teaching. So everything is grace. So I heard this beautiful analogy. Well, if everything is grace, right? So they said, well, this is when they say it's kind of like a teaching or something that someone has said that's been passed down. We have to act like it's not, though, right? So it's like if we were walking in the rain. I heard this the other day. If we're walking in the rain, for us to catch the water to drink it, we have to open our hands and catch it. I thought I've been thinking about that a lot the past couple weeks.
So what I hear you saying is this idea that we are both human and divine, coupled with an awareness that in order for things to happen, in order for us to have a drink of water, we need to do some stuff, and we need to put some of these ideas of love into action. I couldn't think of a better or more important idea to provide our audience with today, and I'm super grateful for your openness. I'm also glad you noticed that I do this, because it's been a real symbolic move of mine, just in terms of being a man in this world who wants to be open, not only to myself, but to others. I can't thank you enough for being here. You are a guy that I just like being around, and the wisdom and the grace and the love that you are sharing is certainly felt and experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking a walk with us and for being with us here today. Much love and peace. Take care.